There was a mule who never said no, not once, not when the load was too heavy, not when his back ached, not when his legs trembled. He was the merchant's favorite, the one they trusted most, the one they praised every night around the fire, and that trust killed him. This is the story of what happens when you are always available, always reliable, always the one who never complains. A merchant caravan crossed the northern mountains every spring carrying spices, silk and silver from the valley to the cities beyond the peaks. The journey took 30 days, dangerous paths, narrow cliffs, freezing winds. At night, they used mules to carry the cargo, strong animals, 7 mules in total. But there was one mule everyone loved. His name was Dastan was different from the others. When the handlers came to load him in the morning, he stood perfectly still. He never kicked, never bit, never moved while they tied heavy bags to his back. The other mules were difficult. One mule would snap at handlers. If the load felt uneven, another would kick. If the bags were too heavy, a third would refuse to move until weight was redistributed. The handlers hated dealing with them. It took time, effort, patience, but Dastan made their job easy. So they rewarded him the way humans always reward the ones who make life easy. They used him more. Every morning, the caravan prepared to move. The handlers would load Dastan first, not because he was the strongest, because he was the easiest. Put the heavy spice sacks on Dastan. He doesn't complain. Add those extra silver boxes to Dastan's load. He can handle it. The steep path today, use Dastan. He's the most reliable. Day after day, week after week, Dastan's load grew heavier than the other mules. Not dramatically, just gradually, a few extra kilos. Here, one more bag there. The other mules, with their biting and kicking, forced the handlers to be careful to measure, to distribute weight fairly. But Dastan's silence gave them permission to be careless. And because Dastan never refused, they forgot to check if he was suffering. The merchant himself praised Dastan every evening. Look at this magnificent animal. Never complains, never causes problems. This is what loyalty looks like. He would feed Dastan an extra handful of grain as a reward. Dastan would eat it quietly, his legs trembling beneath the weight he had carried all day. But no one noticed the trembling. They only noticed the silence. On the first day of spring, the caravan set out. 30 days through the mountains. This was the most important journey of the year. As always, Dastan was loaded first. Heaviest bags, most valuable cargo. The handlers didn't weigh his load. They didn't need to. Dastan never complained, so they assumed he was fine. Day 1, Dastan walked steadily but slower than usual. Day 5, his breathing was heavier, going uphill. Day 10, he stumbled once on loose rocks, but caught himself. Day 15, his eyes looked tired. His steps were careful, measured, but he never stopped, never refused, never made a sound. The handlers saw these signs, but they misread them. Dastan is getting older, one said. He's fine. Another replied, he's still moving. If he was in trouble, he'd let us know. This is what humans tell themselves. If someone is suffering, they will say so. If they keep going, they must be okay. We forget that some people, some animals, have been trained to keep going no matter what. Day 20 came. The caravan reached the steepest part of the mountain pass, a narrow path that climbed sharply between 2 cliffs. The merchant looked at his mules and made a decision. Dastan will go first. He's the surest on difficult terrain. Halfway up the steep path, Dastan stopped walking. Not because he chose to stop, because his legs gave out. He collapsed. The heavy bags slid sideways. The cargo tumbled onto the rocks. Dastan lay on the ground, his chest heaving, his eyes wide with exhaustion. The entire caravan stopped. Handlers rushed to him. They cut the ropes. They pulled the bags off his back. One by one they unloaded what Dastan had been carrying. And then someone did what they should have done 20 days ago. They weighed the load, 240 kilograms. The other mules were carrying 150. Silence fell over the group. The merchant stared at the pile of bags, then at Dastan, then at his own hands. Why didn't he refuse? The merchant whispered. An old mountain guide who had been traveling with the caravan stepped forward. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke, but now he looked at the merchant with hard eyes. He did refuse. The guide said, every single day you just didn't listen. The merchant opened his mouth to argue, but the guide continued. His slowing steps were a refusal. His heavy breathing was a refusal. His stumble on day 10 was a refusal. His tired eyes were screaming at you to stop. The guide knelt beside Dastan and ran his hand along the mule's trembling legs. But because he didn't bite you or kick you, you thought he was fine. Because he kept moving, you thought he was willing. He stood up and looked at every handler, every merchant. Silence is not consent. Compliance is not capacity. The words hit the merchant like stones. He thought about every time he had praised Dastan, every time he had called him loyal and dedicated, every time he had added just one more bag because Dastan can handle it. He had mistaken Dastan's exhaustion for strength. He had mistaken Dastan's silence for agreement. He had destroyed the animal he loved most by trusting him too much and protecting him too little. The guide continued, his voice quieter now but no less cutting. The mules that bit you, they saved themselves. They forced you to pay attention. They forced you to be careful. This one trusted you to protect him, and you failed him. Dastan survived that day, barely. They lightened his load. They let him rest for 3 days. They treated his legs and fed him carefully. But Dastan was never the same. His back had suffered permanent damage. His legs were weak. He could carry light loads for short distances, but he could never work like before. The merchant bought him from the caravan and took him to his own farm. He let Dastan graze peacefully for the rest of his days. But every time the merchant looked at him, he felt the weight of his own guilt. The merchant changed everything after that journey. He bought a scale every mule's load was weighed before. Departure equal weight, no exceptions. He enforced mandatory rest days. No mule worked more than 6 days without a full day of rest. He created a rotation system. The difficult paths were shared equally, and most importantly, he trained his handlers to read the signs. If a mule slows down, we stop and check. If a mule stumbles, we lighten the load immediately. Silence does not mean they are fine. Silence often means they are suffering. The other merchants laughed at him. You're too soft now. You're treating animals like children. But the merchant's mules lived longer, worked better, stayed healthier, and his caravan never lost a single day to a collapsed animal again. Years later, a young merchant asked him, "Why do you spend so much time checking on mules that seem fine?" The merchant looked at Dastan grazing peacefully in the afternoon sun. Because the one who seems most fine is often the one who needs help most. The ones who never complain are the ones we must watch closest. The loudest problems get attention, but the silent suffering destroys lives. How many of you are Dastan? How many of you carry double the weight because you never complain? How many of you are praised for being reliable while your legs tremble beneath the load? Understand this: the people who use you are not evil. They are human, and humans will take as much as you allow them to take. When you never say no, you train people to never ask if you are okay. When you always say yes, you teach them that your limits do not exist. The mules that bit and kicked were not difficult. They were honest. They communicated their boundaries clearly. Dastan's silence was not strength. It was self-destruction. You are not a mule. You are not a machine. You are a human being with limits, with needs, with a breaking point. Stop carrying everything. Stop being available for every request. Stop sacrificing yourself to make other people's lives easier. Silence is not consent. Compliance is not capacity. The moment you collapse, they will finally see how much you were carrying. But by then the damage is done. Set boundaries now. Say no now. Protect yourself now. Let them be inconvenienced. Let them find another way. Let them carry their own weight, because the alternative is collapsing on a mountain path with a load that was never yours to carry alone.